My question is, my name's Ryan Hensley too. Hensley. How do you spell your last name?
It's Ensle.
Ensle.
Uh-huh.
Okay, mine's Hensley. Okay.
Okay.
I was just wondering, how long have you done this?
Well, I've been playing ever since I was 14. So over 50 years.
All right. Thank you.
I've been performing. Well, I've been performing since '67, so 52 years I've been performing. But playing guitar since I was 14.
Thank you.
You bet. Thank you.
Oh, would you stand up, please?
Hi, my name's Leah McKinnish. I just wanted to ask, do you remember the first song you wrote, and what was it?
Well, that's a good question. First song I wrote was about a rainy day in Houston. I do remember that.
That's an anomaly. Not.
But I don't know if I don't know if I could remember how to play it. I was about 16. Something like rainy Houston morning, staring at the shiny street, painting myself into the corner where the walls of misery meet. I was 16, I don't know. And I was probably in love with some girl, you know. But I don't really remember. As you grow and mature as a writer, then you tend to leave some of your older material behind, thinking that even though some of my material, I still get requests for things I wrote back in the 60s and 70s. I don't really know them all that well. But that's what the song was about. Rainy Houston morning.
Anybody? Oh, we have another question here, right? Yep. Oh, okay.
Hi, my name's Jordan Bevins. I just wanted to ask you, what inspired you to write music for others?
What inspired me to write?
Or play music for others?
Or play guitar? Well, that's a good question. My brother had a friend. Like I say, I was playing saxophone, and I really loved music. And playing music, and the more I play it, the more I realize what a healing property music has. As a teenager, going through all the stuff that teenagers go through and trying to find your identity and whatnot, music really made me feel good, and I was good at it. I was kind of adept at it. I don't know if I had some kind of innate ability or whatever, but it came kind of quickly to me, playing the sax and learning music, and I was always getting demoted down. I'd go up and we'd have tryouts, and I'd make first chair, and then I'd start cutting up and misbehaving and playing stuff like Little Brown Jug, on the sax behind the teacher's back, and then he'd put me down. I'd have to win the chair again, but it came pretty easy for me. But my brother had a friend that would come over, and my brother was 8 years older than me, and his friend, of course, was 8 years older too. 8 years older, yeah. And anyway, he would come, and he'd play folk songs, Kingston Trio songs, and he'd play show tunes like "They Call the Wind Mariah," and he'd come over to the house and be playing those, and I was like, that's what I want to do. I want to play guitar and sing. So I asked my parents for a guitar, and I got one for Christmas. But he was a big inspiration. And plus I had this record player. Back then we had 45s, and you could stack up like about 15 of them. And they would, after they played, the arm would go over and the next one would drop. And then the arm would play the next one. So you could play like about 10 or 12
I remember this.
45s. And I listened to the music of the day, of the 60s. And there's a lot of folk music and a lot of, pop music, and I just really, it just really moved me to hear the, Tom Dooley and Kingston Trio, and then, I got into the folk scene and heard the songs Townes was playing and Guy was playing and Don Sanders, and got into the folk scene.
Okay, another question here?
Yeah, my name is Ali Mahoy. I was just wondering, since you were born in Texas and you grew up in Houston, do you think like your environment, just where you came from, had a big impact on the kind of music that you made, and why?
I didn't really understand.
Say that again?
So, growing up in Houston, do you think like the people around you, or just like being in Texas, had a big impact on why you make the kind of music that you make?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And why?
Why? Why did it have?
Yeah, why do you think that?
Well, I mean, that's what I was exposed to, and so I naturally kind of had a tendency to lean toward the folk idiom, the genre, especially storytelling. But yeah, all the folk music was what was going on in the '60s in Houston, and we had these things called coffee houses back then. Well, they just served coffee and teas, like the Sand Mountain Coffee House you mentioned. They had little fishnet candles on the tables, and there was no alcohol, and it was all about, and it was acoustic music, so it was acoustic guitars, and it was all about, telling stories, and then it got to be, got to be some political stuff started, coming in the '60s too. I didn't really get into that scene, but I just kind of gravitated toward that, and finger picking was something that really was attractive to me, because especially when you're playing a solo, I mean, you sort of have to. You don't have a bass player or a rhythm player or a lead player, so you sort of have to do all three. And when you finger pick, you sort of can, do that. Does that answer your question? Sure.
You had a question, right? Okay.
I have a couple questions for you, if you
Okay.
don't mind. So my first question is about the visuals in your music. So you have lots of very rich visuals in your songs, but they're also really emotional. So my question is, do you go for more of a feeling when you write, or are you really more geared towards creating a clear image for your listeners to relate to and see?
Good question.
Yeah, it is a good question, and I was working as an artist in schools in the Beaumont through the government, and I had to sort of investigate the creative process, and so I did some studying, and I tried to explain the creative process or works of art, as songs included, as having three parts: a feeling, an idea, and a form. And you need to have all three of those things. When I was working with school kids, so I had to simplify it as much as I could. But what you're talking about is the feeling, but also the idea. And of course, the form is the way it's presented in terms of musically. So what has to happen with any work of art, I think, is there has to be an inspiration somewhere. And it either comes from the feeling, or it comes from the idea, or it comes from the form. A lot of times you can just play guitar, and you start playing around the guitar, and you come up with a really beautiful melody. Well, there's a form. So it's like, well, you plug a feeling into it and an idea, and you have a song. So you know, and you don't necessarily, you know, break it down and approach it in that manner, but there has to be an inspiration somewhere, either from a feeling or an idea or a form. So a lot of times the idea is what comes first for me, like the eye of the hurricane, or saving me. So the idea of my dad, you know, and what he did saving me, and how there's a double entendre there, because he was saving the photographs too. So it, you know, it's not really cut and dried. It's, you know, those three aspects kind of, you know, influence one another in the creative process, and that's what's so neat is being surprised by your own creative process. You know, you have to get into the zone, what I call the zone. That's the main thing. You have to have peace and quiet, you know, to make it all come together and find that place, you know, in your world where you can do that. But it's amazing, and I'm a Christian, so, you know, I give God credit for my work, because I know He has inspired me, and I know that He lets me know when it's finished and lets me know when it's not finished. So, but I have to be in a position where I can hear Him.
Thank you. I did have a second question. So it is something you touched on, which was the form. So my second question was something you touched on, which was the form of your creations of music. And you did talk about how sometimes you'll think of the melody before you think of the lyrics or the idea, which I thought was really interesting, because as a writer, I generally think of the words first.
Get the what?
The words. Like, I generally write the lyrics first, and then the music comes second. So what I thought was interesting was something you mentioned, that sometimes the music comes first. So do you think for you, your connection is more with the music, where that comes first and inspires your ideas? Or do you, like you said, they all three interplay, but more with your creative process, what do you think is more influential for you?
Yeah, if I'm noodling around or something, and I play piano too, I write on piano, you know, and I hit on something, you know, it might spark, you know, an idea or a feeling, but typically with me, I wait for, or I look for an idea. I saw a man the other day, and he was a panhandler, but he had a sign, and it said $1.65. And I drove by, and I saw that, and I said, "What? $1.65?" And I got what I call a chicken skin, you know. And I said, I'm supposed to write that song, you know, and I did. But that's, you know, I was in the zone. I mean, I was paying attention. I had my antennas up, you know, and that's really what you have to do. Woody Guthrie used to call it vaccinating yourself into society. Of course, he did that as far as all the people that he met, but you know, that just came out of that. And sometimes, you know, I spend a lot of windshield time, so it gives me time to think and to meditate on the world and human nature, and, you know.
I think it'd be kind of interesting to hear the $1.65 song. Would you guys like to hear that?
Okay. It's brand new, so I'll probably mess it up. But he was a street corner man, sign in his hand, smiling in his tattered old coat. As I drove on by from the corner of my eye, saw on that sign what he wrote. $1.65. $1.65. God bless. Well, I circled the block. I had to stop, do what I could for that man. I never found out what that sign was about. Cars kept honking as he reached out his hand. For $1.65, just $1.65. As I pulled away, his smile was saying that he never does ask for more than what he needs. He still believes he's a sparrow in the eyes of the Lord. Might be what it takes to get rid of his shakes. It's cold living under a bridge. Might be all he lacks to take a Greyhound back home to his wife and kid. $1.65. Now he's got that $1.65.